Okay, so now we go to the second part, which is the more technical part for today, which is calculating effect size. So if you remember what we did previously, we said that there are a set of 800 papers. I boiled down to 31 papers. Now my next job is that from these 31 papers I need data. Okay, I have to extract data and I have to get a consolidated effect size. Remember those horses in a polo team? I had to get a consolidated effect size or a consolidated power for those horses. Okay, and I now start calculating the effect size. Why an effect size? Okay, many of you should have thought that whenever we pick up a paper for a bivariate analysis, I'm still on religion impacts intention. Now when I collect a paper of this sort, I generally collect papers where there is significance shown for that value. Okay, I generally collect papers where the p-value is less than 0.05, the bivariate analysis is significant, there is a relationship between religion and intention, and I say, okay, I'm picking up these 31 papers where the relationship is significant. Ideally, this is wrong. We should be picking up papers where significance is not established also. But we'll come to this concept in publication bias later on. But in all these papers of bivariate analysis, whether we picked up a paper of t-test, whether we picked up a paper of correlation value, whether we picked up a paper of ANOVA, there was always a significance. So there was a p-value which said that this value is significant, thus the relationship between A and B is significant, and we picked it up. Then what was the use of an effect size? The paper already said that the relationship was significant. Why are we at the back of picking up effect size vis-a-vis the significance that was shown in those papers? Let me explain. So this is a comic depiction of what you have picked up. Is that 0.05 enough? For all those who don't know what is significance, okay, let me explain. Whenever you do a bivariate analysis, okay, and you say that one factor is affecting the other, there has to be a significant effect. So I remember in one of the faculty development programs, there was this one very good example given to me. They said that whenever in the morning, somewhere around 5ish, the moment the sun rises, the birds start chirping. So every time the sun rises in the morning, the birds are chirping. So if I were to list in 2 columns, when did the sun rise all days and when did the birds chirp, I think I will get a relation between them. And I will get a relation saying that, okay, as many number of times 5 a.m. happened in the world, the birds starting chirping. Now, is it a significant relationship? There is a relationship, but is it significant? How do you find that out? Suppose tomorrow the birds stop chirping tomorrow morning. So will the sun not rise? Will the morning not happen? No, it will still happen. So sometimes what happens is that despite the fact that 2 variables are showing variance, so one is rising and the other is also rising or decreasing, showing variance, but it is not a significant variance. That variance is just by chance. So I give this one very funny example to my graduate and postgraduate students at Pearl Academy. I tell them that suppose I am comparing Salman Khan's affairs and Ranbir Kapoor's affairs and Salman Khan's breakup. So I will see that Ranbir Kapoor's affairs are increasing and simultaneously Salman Khan's breakups are also increasing. Now does that mean that Ranbir Kapoor is the person because of whom Salman Khan's breakup is happening? No. Despite the fact that one variable is bringing a variance in the other, still the variance is non-significant. Who tells you that? The p-value tells you that. But once the p-value has told you that it is not significant, then why do we do an effect size? Let us know why. This is the difference between the p-value of a bivariate relationship and an effect size of a bivariate relationship. The p-value tells us there is an association or influence or impact or effect or relation. Any 5 words. And different tests, different bivariate tests tell us about different associations. So there is a chi-square, there is a t-test, there is a correlation test, there is regression. So all these tests are what they are telling you, that there is a relationship between one variable and another. They say association exists, but the measure of that association, the power of that association, the size of that association is not told by a significance level. This was the first flaw, because of which the concept of effect size came into beginning. So, if I read 100 papers, all 100 papers said association is there, but none of the 100 papers told me what is the effect of that association. So, in meta-analysis, I pick up that paper, find out its effect size, pick up a second paper, find out its effect size, pick up a third paper, find out its effect size, consolidate through formulas and find out a summary effect size. Okay? Second thing, p-value cannot be used quantitatively to compare results. So just let's go back to review of literature. So I was collecting review of literature and I have to hypothesize that religion impacts intention. I had to hypothesize that religion impacts intention. Because I had to hypothesize, I needed 4 authors who must have said this. So I went back to past literature. I got 4 authors who have said this. Now, what did I write in my paper? I wrote, Rice et al. Showed an association between PI and significant association between intention and behavior. Then second paper, so and so showed a significant relationship between this and this. And I repeat this line 4 times for 4 authors. Nowhere does it show the magnitude of that relation, and effect size does that. So there is a comparison of magnitude and effect size, something which is not there in p-value. P-value statistically tells us only the probability that the observed results are not due to chance, they are actually happening, which means, like I told you, Salman Khan's affairs, breakups, and Ranveer Singh's affairs. So it shows that this variation, if the p-value comes more than 0.05, it shows that there is a variation between those 2 variables, but it's just by chance. It is not related to each other significantly. But effect size tells us how important that probability is. Okay, so where p-value was more of the qualitative statistical significance, shows association, effect size gives me the magnitude. Let me take you back to those horses. Okay, you can say that maybe the speed of the horse and his performance is related. If you give me just this much of data, I'll not be able to make my polo team. I actually want to know the power of each and every horse, or in this case, each and every study. So, suppose I'm taking a very general example which we do in our social science research. Suppose there is a person who is into depression and she is being given therapy. Now what I do is I collect some 100 papers and I say, okay, let me see if therapy impacts the depression level. And I collected some 31 papers. Remember, in the systematic review I had boiled down to 31 papers. I collected some 31 papers and I said, okay, let me see the effect size of this relationship, therapy and depression. Let me see the effect size in each paper. I saw the effect size in 100 papers and I did an average mean of them. Average weighted mean, we'll come to that, which is called the consolidated, the summative effect size. And I found out for those 31 papers which studied the impact of therapy on depression, my effect size, consolidated weighted effect size is somewhere around 0.1. What does it show? As I said, effect size is magnitude. So the authors have told us that when you're consolidating these 31 papers and finding out an effect size, if the effect size is somewhere around 0.1, it is lesser, and if it's 0.8, it is maximum. So just see, had it been a p value of those 31 papers, I think 31 papers would have said yes, it is significant. Therapy and depression, significant relation. But the size of how significant it is can be found out only through finding out effect size. There are 3 types of effect size, and you need to understand this. There is a standard mean deviation. Okay, means and standard deviation are collected, and there is a effect size which is calculated, and these are all inputs, by the way. So all these 3 effect size differ in only and only the input, but you will see at the end of this class today that whatever input you take, at one point of time all studies become equal. So there are primarily 3 types of effect size. Number 1, where mostly we deal with experimental study papers. Okay, this is something which came from the medical line. Okay, why this came up, or why there was this input of means and standard deviations, was because here we compare 2 groups, and in medical line generally there is experimentation, the 2 groups being experimental group and control group. So if they are testing a vaccine, they will have 2 groups, experimental, control. So this is one way of calculating effect size. I'll come to each one of them. We will do the calculations. The second type is risk ratio. Again, this comes primarily from medical studies. It's so used to happen that after giving a vaccine or after giving a treatment, there were some events which were noted. So sometimes when you gave a treatment, the patient survived or he died. Now these are 2 events. So whenever you are basing your effect size on the basis of studies, medical studies which are describing an event, it is called a risk ratio effect size. Okay, and last but not the least, correlation. When you are basing the inputs of an effect size on the basis of a correlation value between bivariate analysis, generally done in social sciences, okay, then it is called a correlation effect size. So 3 effect sizes, and I'll give you an example not only in the medical field, by the way, all 3 are used in social sciences and management also. I'll give you examples. So based on the types of effect size, they are divided. Okay, effect sizes are divided into 2 families, rather 3 families. So there is something called a standardized effect size and an unstandardized effect size. What is standardized? A standardized unit, you must have also, I think people in statistics would know this better. A standardized unit is when I don't have a kg and a meter and a degree Celsius, etc. Standardized means a single number. So when I say my effect size or the power of all those horses in the polo ground was 0.7, I did say 0.7 kg, 0.7 meter, 0.7 this, 0.7. No, it was just 0.7. A standardized effect size estimate. What is unstandardized? Unstandardized will be the one where there will be some unit. Okay, there will be some unit which will vary and it will not be a standard. Now, the standardized effect size estimate fall into primarily 3 groups. Okay, so there is the group called D family. Okay, this is, if you see in the slide, this is the first one, standard deviation and means, where the input is standard deviation and means. It is called the D family. Okay, the D family it is called because the effect sizes that you get from here are generally called Hedges G, Cohen's D, Glasses Hedge. Glasses G. So these are the type of effect sizes you get when your input is means and standard deviation. Okay. Number 2, the R family. Okay, based on correlation. So number 3, where you see correlation, when from all these 31 studies I am taking up a correlation value, what sort of an effect size am I calculating? The R family effect size. And last but not the least, number 2, when my input is a risk ratio or an odd risk ratio, I'll come to both of them, then the family is called others effect size family. I hope it is very clear from the chart that if it is a D family, you need a standard mean difference, okay, and the effect size which comes is known as either Hedges G or Cohen's D or Glasses G, and these are all types of effect sizes based on inputs. So there are some 100 types of effect sizes which can be. Here we are normally covering one of each family, and why I am covering this is because it's not only in the medical line that you come across the D family and others. Even in social science research we will come across experimentation. For example, I will come across a research where I see I have shown an advertisement to a set of people and I have not shown it to a set of people. So through the set of people to whom I showed the advertisement becomes my experimental group. The people who did not see my advertisement become my control group, and I want to see the mean of both of them when it comes to sales of my product. Okay, so it is not that D family or others family, odds risk ratio as an input and standard mean difference as an input is only restricted to the medical field. Yes, it came from the medical field, but now we are using it in social science research also. But the correlations of the R family are the most prominently used when you see meta-analysis research papers of management and commerce. Okay, so for all of you who are from the management or commerce domain, when you read meta-analysis papers, or if you have read the one, the first assignment when you read for Prisma, you will see that at the end of the day they are just taking correlation values from those 31 selected papers. Okay, those who are in the medical line or pharmacy line, health line, you will see that most of your papers take the standard deviation and mean from experimental studies. So those 31 studies are not correlational studies, they are experimental studies. Similarly, those who are working on odds ratio will see that all those 31 studies that you collected, you need the odds ratio from that. So you have to select likewise. Okay. Now I'll also send in the group I will send one paper of D family, one paper of R family, one paper of other family. Okay, and you will see it is just the effect size where they vary. Today they will vary. From tomorrow onwards, when there is heterogeneity taught, when there is meta-regression, subgroup analysis taught, they will stop varying. Okay. Now let me come to the first one, which is the R family. Okay, because I think we have more of management and commerce students here, and this I learned the hard way. Actually, there is a lot of data available on YouTube on D family and even odds ratio. There is very less, and it's a challenge, there is a very less data available on R family. Again, I think Neeraj Kaushik sir has put some videos in which there is the R family explained very well, correlations explained very well for social science researchers. Otherwise, there was nothing. In fact, when I was studying meta-analysis for the past 6-7 months, what I did is I actually wrote to people who were explaining videos on the D family or odds ratio, and they were all medical people. They were all people from the medical domain. I wrote to them that, sir, how can I do this in correlation? And there was no answer. Thanks to the book of Borenstein, thanks to the book of Hunter and Smith, that I understood how it could be done in the R family, but you still don't have videos for that. You still don't have videos for how to extract variables from, extract data from R family and do effect size. Okay, so let's come to the R family. Here, after explaining the concept, I will be taking you to the comprehensive meta-analysis software. I will also be taking you, comprehensive meta-analysis is paid. I will also be taking you to a free software, which is Excel, which is Meta Essentials, okay, which I'll be taking you. I'll be showing you the sheet for that and how you input R values and what outputs you can get. So now let us come to business and extract data. Okay, let's start extracting data. For all those of you, mind you, I am at the R family right now. Reminding you, there are 3 types and I am on the R family. Only taking inputs from correlation to calculate effect size of my 31 studies. I am still at R. Okay. Now, the input table of the R family effect size looks something like what is there on the left side. So, you have one column, and this can be made in Excel also. It can be copied to comprehensive meta-analysis. I'll be showing all this. So you could directly put a table into CMA, or you could make a table in Excel and then import it to CMA or copy it to CMA. It's absolutely up to you. But what do I need? What are my inputs for calculating effect size? I need 3 things. Number 1, I need the study name. So here there's a column of study name. These are my 8 studies. Ideally, I'll do this for 31 studies. I'm just showing you an exemplar. So you take 8 studies, write the name of the authors. Okay, you'll have to input it manually. This will not be imported. Correlation coefficient, okay, or the R value from each paper. So if there was a paper of Morse 2006, okay, I need, what is this value 0.56? It is the correlation value of that bivariate relationship. Remember, religion impacts intention. Okay, so what is this 0.56? It is the correlation value of the bivariate relationship religion and PI taken from the paper Moore 2006. Similarly, I will take the correlation values from all papers that I have, 31 papers that I have, and list it over here. Some values could be negative also. It's absolutely fine. If there was a negative correlation, please write minus 0.53 or minus 0.51. It's absolutely fine. Column number 3, the third column, and that is all we need. Rest, all analysis that we are going to do in the next 3-4 days will be based on this input only. So imagine this is all you have to give. I think major part is systematic review. When you are collecting 800 papers, then you are reading the titles, then abstracts, then papers, then coming to 31. Once you come to those 31, then you just have to make this paper and the software will do all work for you. You don't have to do anything. Unless and until a few of you are interested in the formula behind that, I will be showing you the formula also. If you're not interested in formula and you just want to write a paper, this is all that you have to input to write a paper. But you have to do this for each of a bivariate relationship. So this input table will be separate for religion and intention, separate for intention and attitude, separate for subjective norm and intention, separate for intention and behavior. So as many bivariate relationships you have, that many meta-analysis you will have to do, and that many input tables you will have to have. Okay. Now, from where does this correlation value come? 0.56. On the right side, I have actually given you an example of a paper, my input paper, and if you see very clearly, it has the correlation matrix. Now, next question. I had, if you remember when I showed you the Prisma, I showed you that there are some 40 papers. And that poor chap saw that in 9 of the papers, this matrix was not given. This correlation matrix was not given in 9 papers. So do you remember what he did? He wrote to the authors. That, sir, this correlation matrix is not given in your paper. Can you please give it? And those guys, suppose those guys said, or they did not reply at all. What do? You leave those 9 papers and come to 31 papers. Okay, now I am assuming that I've done my bit and all 31 papers should be having this correlation matrix. If they don't have a correlation matrix, at least in the theoretical way they should have written that attitude and subjective norm, this is the value, subjective norm and perceived behavioral control, this is the R value. At least in written theoretically they should have written. Okay, so this is the input table. Okay, this is on the right side. I'm actually showing you out of those 31 papers, I'm actually showing you one of the papers. And I'm actually showing you the correlation table from which you have to pick up value. Now, if you see what is the value of attitude and intention, the value is 0.91. Okay, so the value is 0.91. Okay, this is a value between attitude and intention. Okay, so what will you do? And look at it, it's to be done very systematically, by the way. Now you will pick up from all 31 papers, you just pick up this value. Which value? Attitude and intention. That's it. We are not working on the rest of the values. We are not working on the rest of the values. For one meta-analysis input table, I will be taking only attitude intention from 31 papers. Only attitude intention from 31 papers and putting it into this Excel sheet on the left. Each paper will have a sample size. I will also be putting a sample size which is n. For example, 133, 149. These are the sample size of the respective authors and their correlation values between any one bivariate. So here it is attitude intention. Similarly, I will have to repeat this whole Excel sheet for, say, subjective norm and intention. Then I will have to repeat this whole Excel sheet for 31 papers for perceived behavioral control and intention, 0.60. And similarly for 31 papers. Okay, so it's not that easy. For every bivariate relationship, you will have to do a meta-analysis. Okay, this is the input for effect size. I think I already explained here, if you remember. So we have a study name, okay, and there is a correlation value and there is a sample size. Okay, in case you do not get the Pearson correlation, on the right side you can see this table. We are taking a Pearson correlation from a correlation matrix. In case you don't get a Pearson correlation, you get between two variables an ANOVA F, a t value, a Fisher's Z, a p value, so or regression coefficient. All these can be converted to Pearson correlation. So there are methods of converting an ANOVA F into Pearson correlation. There are formulas for converting regression coefficient to Pearson correlation. So don't worry, even if there is a relationship you find in those 31 papers where the relationship is, say, between religion and intention, and suppose they have done a t-test, or suppose they have done a correlation, or suppose they have done a regression coefficient. Okay, there is a SEM model and you get a regression coefficient value. Even that can be converted into correlation. So it all depends on you. I might not reject papers which don't have a correlation matrix if that paper does have a regression coefficient, or if that paper has an ANOVA F, or that paper has a t value. Okay, so they all can be converted into Pearson correlation through formulas. Okay, but at the end of the day, the input table that you can see right now will only and only be that of correlation. So if you have a t-test or a regression coefficient, convert it manually into correlation. The input into the software will only and only be that of correlation values. Okay. Once you do this input, you will get automatically generated through CMA, you will get something called the forest plot. Okay. Now let me explain the concept of a forest plot. What is a forest plot? A forest plot is actually plotting the studies on the basis of their effect sizes. Okay, so what you are seeing over here is they have just been plotted on the basis of effect size. So if I go to in the forest plot, if you see study number 1, it has been plotted as effect size minus 0.65. If you see study number 2, it has been plotted as effect size minus 0.69. See study number 3, it shows plotted as minus 0.31. Remember those horses? Small horse, big horse. Remember those horses? So these are the powers of those horses. So study number 1 is nothing but the power of the horse 1. Study number 2 is nothing but the power of the horse 2. Study number 3 is nothing but the power of the horse 3. Now these black squares that you see, some squares are big, some squares are small, some squares are so very tiny. These are all based on sample size. So what happens is, generally when a forest plot is made by a software, the studies having a higher sample size are given more weightage. Okay, remember, for example, these studies, the last two studies, you see their squares are huge. So probably they had a very huge sample size. Okay, so more weightage has been given to these studies. Vis-a-vis this, if you see study number 4, that's such a small sample size. So it has been given lesser weightage. Number 1. Number 2, the confidence interval, this line that you see is the confidence interval. What does it say? It says that I have a 95% confidence that the effect size of this study will lie between these two values. So let me see study number 1. I have a square which shows the amount of samples I have, which is okay, medium, not very small, not very big. And then I have this line from left to right which shows me that this effect size which I have taken out, which is minus 0.65, may vary from this upper limit to this lower limit. Okay, and the upper limit and lower limit are given on the right side in the square bracket, minus 1.21 and minus 0.08. Okay, if you see the same line, if you see below, it is exactly the values given on the right are exactly there on the, they are exactly there on the scale also. So here you have a scale of the effect size of minus 1.5 to plus 0.5, and in every study you have many things which the forest plot is telling you. One, it is telling you the weightage given on the basis of sample size. So the larger the square, the larger was the sample size, more was the weightage, and it gives you confidence level, which means the upper limit and lower limit it is giving you. So despite the fact that in my study my effect size is minus 0.65, my upper limit and lower limit, which means I am 95% sure that my effect size for study number 1 will lie between minus 1.21 and minus 0.08. This is called the upper and lower limit. Another thing which the forest plot tells you is this diamond that you see, and on the right side you see minus 0.48. What is this? This is your actual effect size for those 31 studies taken together. Consolidated, cumulated effect size, weighted effect size, okay, or we also call it summary effect, or we call it weighted effect size of all these papers taken together. So if I say I studied some 10 papers of different sample size, different correlation value between religion and intention, and mind you, this is only for one variable, religion and intention, I say my consolidated effect in those 10 papers was minus 0.48, which is not very high, not very low, it's somewhere between a medium effect size. So if I talk in layman language, of all the past studies that I did and I calculated their effect size, the overall power of this one relationship, religion impacting intention, is minus 0.48 as per past data. This is not my primary data, this is all as per my past data. Okay, past review of literature papers, secondary data. So it is like saying I have studied all authors on the world who have studied on religion and PI, and after studying all the authors in the world, I feel the summary is that religion and intention have the power of relation of minus 0.48. This is what I am about to say in this whole study. Also, you will notice, just look at study number 8. Very small sample size. And look at the confidence level. Huge. And look at the study number 9. Very large sample size. The square shows the sample size, weightage due to the sample size. Now, this is the square of sample size is huge and the confidence level is smaller. So, when we calculate effect size, and through the formula also you will see, it assumes while calculating effect size that when you have a higher sample size, you will be given more weightage. also. In research, it is always said, those who are doing PhDs will relate to me, whenever we have collected a data of 500 people and we haven't got a significant relationship, sometimes our mentors used to say, increase the sample. And it is always said that the precision, I repeat, precision in a study will only come when the sample size is huge. So we always say that we should at least have a sample size of 500 to 1000 if we want to really conclude a bivariate relationship. Okay, so that is about forest plot. I hope it's clear. So there are many things, and I'll tell you how to do it in CMA. We will be doing this. So what does a forest plot show? It shows effect size for each and every study, minus 0.65, minus 0.69, etc. It shows the confidence level of each study. For example, in the first study, minus 1.21 and minus 0.08. This is the lower level and the upper level. It shows the weightage given to each study, because the square of some studies is bigger and some is smaller. Okay, and it finally shows a cumulative, the diamond shows a cumulated weighted effect size, okay, or the summarized effect size, okay, or the true effect size of all studies taken together. Okay, and this is not a normal average, by the way. Minus 0.48 is not a normal average, it is something called a weighted average. Okay, I'll show you the concept yet. Okay, okay, so that's about forest plot. I hope I haven't missed anything. No, I haven't. Okay, what is Fisher's Z? I'll just let you know. I'm just telling you what Fisher's Z. Now, this is the output. This was all the output, okay, from that correlation table. Now let us see what is the process of doing all this. Okay, this is the output. Now I'll tell you how we do it. So the first thing we do is, you remember we were over here, correlation table, we were over here, this was the correlation table we were working on. Now when it goes into the software, the first thing the software does, it converts it into a Fisher Z. Now why is it converted into a Fisher Z? Why are individual correlations converted into a Fisher Z? Because Fisher Z takes care of all the errors that are there in correlation. Now what is the problem with correlation is that correlation is dependent on the sample size. So if you see the yellow curve in the graph, that is the correlation curve. But what we want is a standard curve, which we want a straight line. So that gray line that you see, that is what is the Fisher value. So to convert this correlation value, why are we converting this correlation values? Because it is depending too much on sample size. Okay, we want a standardized straight line, and for that we convert it into a Fisher Z, and we don't have to convert it, we don't need any formulas, we will just give the software correlation value and sample size, it will itself convert it into Fisher Z. Okay, this is what is the process. This diagram has been taken by Borenstein. So in study 1, we give it a correlation value, the software converts it to Fisher Z. Study B, correlation value, converts it into Fisher Z. Finally, it summarizes the Fisher Z value and converts it back to summary correlation. And then finally we get our effect size. Okay. So this I'm telling you because there will be values of Fisher Z in the, okay. How do we calculate precision of a study? So we have spoken about sample size of a study. We have spoken about every study being given a particular weightage. Okay. We have spoken about the confidence level. We have spoken about the upper limit, lower limit. Okay. Now, there are other things also which will come as output. A few of them have been listed. So the first thing which will come is the variance. Okay, variance will be important for us in future when we do heterogeneity and homogeneity of all the studies. Okay, then there will be a standard error. Okay, standard error is also a means of precision, and we say that larger the sample size, lesser will be the standard error. That is the reason, if you see in the forest plot also that I showed you, the larger the sample size, the more weightage is given to that study. We assume that if the sample size is large, precision is better. Confidence level, we are assuming that the effect size will be normally distributed and it can be computed on a 95% confidence. I showed you for every study, for every effect size on the right side, there was an upper limit and there was a lower limit. Okay, confidence level 95%, I'm confident that my value will fall between this and this value. Okay, for the love of calculations, as I call it, for any of you who really want to know what are the calculations behind it, these are the calculations. They have all been taken from Borenstein. Okay, if you see the first calculation, it is converting the Pearson correlation to Fisher's Z, and the only value it needs for that Z value is R, and R is nothing over here but what was R? This is our R. The correlation column you can see 0.5, 0.6, 0.8, 0.2. This is what it is inputting into this formula as R. Okay. Variance, I told you what is variance. Calculation of variance 1 by n minus 3. N over here is the total number of studies, which in our case is 31. Okay. Standard error of each study, again meant for precision. Standard error is square root of this variance, Vz. Okay. Upper limit and lower limit. Upper limit and lower limit will be your standardized mean plus 1.96 into standard error. Okay. And I'll tell you how to calculate the y part also. So these are the formulae for all the values that you saw in the forest plot. All these values. Okay, so you have a calculation of Fisher's Z, you have a calculation of effect size, upper limit, lower limit, and variance and standard error. Okay, so all this that you will see in the software also. These are the formulae for that. Okay, and these are the formulas for the correlation. I'm still on the R family. I'm right now telling you the calculations only of the R family. Right, so you have all the values. These are all the formula of all the values. I hope you have understood what is variance, what is standard error, upper limit, lower limit, and the summative effect size. Now, as per Cohen, finally when you do all these formulas and you get a final effect size, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. So in this, the diamond that I'm talking about, where I've got a value of minus 0.48. Now, you have to interpret this. This is just a value which has been calculated. You have to interpret it. What is my interpretation? Out of these 10 studies, what is the power of religion to intention? What is the power? Is it good, bad, high, moderate, how much? So, Cohen has given us a set saying that if your value, this diamond value, is somewhere around 0.1, the effect is very, very small or minimalistic. If it is 0.3, it is medium, and if it is 0.5 or more, it is larger. Okay, this has been given by Cohen. And this is how you interpret your data. So, when you write a research paper, you will have to make this forest plot, and then in the diamond minus 0.48, you will have to say, okay, as per Cohen, religion and intention showed a medium effect. Okay, or a little above medium effect. Okay, and this has to be done for every bivariate. Remember, this whole process that I'm telling you is only for one bivariate relationship, which is religion and intention. Okay. Now, okay, before I go to the D family, let me take you to the software, because once you go to the software, you will understand better. Now, this is the comprehensive meta-analysis software. You should have downloaded the trial version by now, and let me tell you, you will get this screen. It's just like an Excel or a SPSS. It's a very, very simple software. Let me tell you how to input data into this. Remember, we are still on correlation effect size. Okay. Now, I go to insert and I say column 4. I repeat, I go to insert and I say column 4 and I click study names. Remember the input table in the PPT, there were 3 columns I needed. One was study name, second was correlation value, third was sample size. So I'm doing the same thing over here. Now here, suppose my study name is Row is the first study name, second is Kenjal, and third is layman. These are my three studies which I had studied. Okay, I could also say Row 1997, I could say Kenjal 2007, whatever you want to put, you can put the year. Okay, okay, 2017. So, sorry, 2017. So, this is my study name. Okay, now my one column is done. The column on study name is done. Now, what were the two other columns? Correlation and sample size. So, here what I do is I again go to insert column 4, and in column 4 I go to effect size data. I am going very slow for first timers. I know you all have not worked on comprehensive meta-analysis. I am going very slow. For the ones who can go faster, please forward the video and go faster. Column 4, effect size data, and click on effect size data. Okay, it will say show all 100 formats. Say show all 100. Imagine there are 100 formats in CMA. Didn't I tell you there are 100 types of inputs for effect size? And just go to next, and here you see something called correlation, the third option. Click on that, and in correlation click on computed effect size. Okay, in computed effect size it will ask you that what sort of an input you have. Do you have a correlation and sample size? Do you have a correlation and standard error of each study? You have 31 studies. It is asking you what input do you have for each study. Do you have correlation sample size? Do you have correlation standard error? Correlation variance? Some people compute Fisher Z manually in Excel. So he is asking, do you have Fisher Z in sample size? Which means maybe you have computed it manually in Excel. So then give me Fisher Z only. So it's a software. It's asking you what do you want. So what we will do is we will go by our standard format which I told you, correlation and sample size. So I click correlation and sample size and I say finish. Now see, it will generate automated tables. It has generated automated tables. Now, what are these automated tables? Here, leave the yellow columns. The yellow columns are actually the output. And see, all those values that I told you in the PPT and I showed you the formula, standard error, variance, Fisher Z. Remember, all these three values I showed you in the PPT also, and I showed you the formula of how we will calculate. All these values are here and they will come as output. But let me complete my input. I promised you there will be only 3 columns, and there are only 3 columns. Column number 1, study name. Column number 2, correlation value. Let me put any correlation value. I say 0.5, then I say 0.6, then I say 0.4. Suppose. And these correlation values are of what? Religion intention. Only one bivariate. Only one bivariate value from 31 papers. Only one bivariate. Rather, you can name the Excel sheet also as religion attitude values, so that you know that this whole Excel sheet is only for religion and attitude. Sample size, my first paper by Row had a sample size of 250. My second paper by Kenjal had a sample size of 300. And my third paper had a sample size of 400. Okay, it will ask you effect direction. Why is it asking you? Sometimes the correlation might be negative also. Okay, so sometimes it will ask you, when it says correlation 0.5, it is positive 0.5. So here, every time you drop down, you will have to click positive. In negative correlations, you will have to click negative. So what we do is we say auto. Auto means take the value which is there. If the correlation is positive, take positive. If the correlation is negative, take negative. So we just press auto, and the moment we press auto, CMA gives you all the outputs. No calculation needed. That slide of calculation had been put up only for those people who want to know what are the back-end calculation of all these values. Okay, and all these values, if you want to further study, and there are working examples in Borenston's book. So in Borenston's book, you will not only find these formula, you will find out working examples also. Okay, so if you really want to know what are the formulas and how it is done, you can definitely refer to Borenstein's book. Now, before I go to this, let me show you that suppose I don't want to input data over here. I don't want to input these three columns. I don't want to input these three columns. I want to make my data in Excel sheet, and then I want to cut, copy, paste into that. Even that can be done. So here I have, see, I have made a data set already. Please look at, don't look at the other two because they are the other effect sizes. We are right now at this. Okay, so just look at this. So just look at this, and this is a data set which I have made in Excel, and I can very well copy it into CMA. So you just right click, copy and paste it in CMA. So there are two ways of inputting data. One is that you make an Excel sheet. Even in Excel sheet you can see the three columns are same: study, correlation and sample size. You will be surprised that in the whole of meta-analysis that you are going to do in 4 days, the only input needed is this. So once your data collection is done and you boil down to those 31 papers, then work is easy. But this is only for one bivariate. So if you are studying the impact of 3 variables on purchase intention, you will have to do all this exercise thrice. I am repeating again and again. Sorry for those who are finding it very repetitive, but I think it's always good to, okay. So this is an output. So you see a Fisher's Z value, okay. The good thing about CMA is whenever you want to see a calculation of a value, you just double click it. So I have double clicked Fisher's Z. On the left side, you can see those values. Remember, even in my PPT, it was 0.5 into log of 1 plus correlation divided by 1 minus correlation. Even in my PPT, this was the formula. Okay, and if you remember, the formula for standard error was also 1 upon n minus 3. Same formula are over here also. Okay, so you click Fisher Z, it shows you the values of how it related, how it changed to Fisher's. It will show you the formula for, if you click on standard error, just a second, if you click on standard error, it will show you Fisher's Z, then standard error, it shows you all formula. Variance, all formula there. They're also there in the PPT in case you want to study them. Okay, so this is what it is, what it has done. It has converted all these correlation values of 0.5 has become 0.549. Okay, so from correlation value it has converted into Fisher's Z. A consolidated Fisher's Z total, I mean average weighted, will be then converted into correlation back. Okay, so every value of correlation is converted into Fisher's Z. There is a standard error. Okay, larger the sample size, lesser the standard error. Okay, and there is variance. Variance will come of use to us when we are doing heterogeneity and homogeneity among our studies. Right, so this is the input. I would also want to show you now. This is just an input I am showing you. I will. Should I show you the forest plot before I go? Okay, let me show you the forest plot also over here. I showed it to you in the PPT. Let me show it here. This is your forest plot. This is your forest plot. Okay, and this value that you see on the yellow line, this value that you see on the yellow line, okay, which is shown as 0.494 is your average weighted cumulative effect size of all the studies taken together, or the power of that polo team of horses. The total power of all those horses together of the polo team is what is shown in the yellow line. Okay, and if you can see the plots, you can also see what I was talking about, which was called the weights. Okay, you can also see something called the weights. And what is this weight? Let me explain. Here what is happening is that all 3 studies have been given a weightage. Okay, I told you in the forest plot in the PPT also that each study will be given a weightage. Now, how has it been given a weightage? Layman study has been given 42.19 weightage. Why? Why? Because it had a very huge sample size. So here if you see these red lines, they are showing the amount of weightage given to each study, okay, relative weightage given to each study, and they are also saying that larger the sample size, more weightage have I given to that study. Okay, so I hope all this is clear. Okay, you can see a correlation value here, 0.5. Now what has happened is, in this analysis what has happened is, previously you saw a table, we converted it into Fisher Z, each value was converted into, I showed you in the PPT also, each correlation is converted into a Fisher Z, then a consolidated Fisher Z is converted back to correlation. That is exactly what has happened over here. Okay, that is exactly. So in this table we have correlation value, we have an upper limit, lower limit for each, okay, and we have a Z value, Fisher Z value. Right, so these are all the statistics which you need in CMA. End of the day, you need a consolidated effect size, consolidated weighted effect size of all the studies, which is 0.494. Again, I go back to Cohen. Cohen said 0.1 very small, 0.3 medium, 0.5 and higher greater. So I come in the medium range. So all those studies that impacted, that was studying religion's impact on intention, the crux or the output of all those studies is 0.494. So it's like saying that, I'll give you a simpler example. It's like saying, I went to one doctor, his name was Dr. Rowe, okay, he cured me to 0.5, okay, he said, okay, 0.5 tak I get cured. I went to another doctor called Kenjal. Again, second time my throat was bad, I went to Dr. Kenjal. He said, okay, I treated you to 0.6%, good treatment. I went to a doctor called Lehman next time. He treated me to 0.4%. Now, taking all these three doctors together, what was the percentage of my throat getting treated well? It was 0.494. Okay, that is what is a consolidated effect size. Okay, so now if you've understood this, I have a few more things to show. I'm still at correlation. For all those people who want to find out how this process is done step by step, I will be passing you this Excel sheet. Okay, this Excel sheet is courtesy Neeraj Kaushik sir. I have made it after looking into his videos. Okay, so you have a correlation here, you have a sample size here, how R is converted into Fisher's, the log formula that I gave you, and then there is a weight which is n minus 3, that is n was here 40, n minus 3 37, variance 1 by weight, so 1 by 37 is 0.027, percentage of weight, which is if the total weight was 647, then how much weight is 37 out of this 647? So the weightage is 5.72%. Then there are further formulas of y into w, w square, and finally after such a lengthy process in Excel, sorry, I lost the screen, give me a minute. After such a lengthy process, we finally come to our consolidated summation, which is 0.375, which I have done in red. Okay, so this is the final what you say summative mean, right? So in case any of you want to see this, want to go through this whole process, and in red if you see, I have actually written down the formulas which were there on the PPT, remember? M plus 1.96 into standard error. Remember those formulas? I have put it over here. All formulas have been upper limit, lower limit, variance is square root of standard error, variance is 1 by weight. So all those formulas you can see here. For those of you who really want to do it, these are back-end calculations. Many of you might not be interested in this, but then in case you are interested, all the formula are here. You will not have to do this manually. Okay, so this is how the CMA has done it. And last but not the least, I have to show you CMA is a paid software. It's a paid software. So I wanted to find out something which is free, and thanks again to Neeraj Kaushik sir, I have found it out. He has mentioned in his videos something called Meta Essentials. You have to download this. Okay, this is the screen of Meta Essentials. Okay, so over here, see the table, the input, see over here we can go to input. Okay, in input you see study name AAA, and then you see correlation value which is 0.98, and then you see number of subjects 100. Okay, so you just moderator something I'll teach you later on, but right now the only input you needed was these three. Okay, include study, yes, which means obviously those 31 studies which we had included. So there's an extra column in meta-analysis saying yes included. So that is by default yes, because all 31 studies we need the value, we need the correlation value and subject over. So this is my input sheet. The moment you put this input into the input sheet, this Meta Essential will automatically generate a forest plot for you, like CMA. On the right side you can see the forest plot. Okay, and in this forest plot you can see these blue dots. Okay, and you can see the confidence levels also. You can see the confidence levels also. Okay, method is same. The method is same. Correlation converted into Fishers, variance calculated, standard error calculated, effect size calculated, and the upper limit and the lower limit. Okay, so the whole process is same. Those of you who do not want to get a paid software like comprehensive meta-analysis, this is quite a savior. Meta Essentials is quite a savior. It's free of cost. So here I have just right now I'm just showing you two sheets. One is the input sheet, so that you know how to input data into that. Please try this. Okay, this is a part of your assignment. Please try this. And the second thing which we have done, forest plot. So I'm showing you a forest plot also, how it is done in. And I've done nothing, by the way. I've done nothing. The moment I put an input into this, it will show me a forest plot. Okay, it is all automated sheets. There are other sheets like subgroup analysis, moderator analysis, publication. This I will show you when I come to these. Okay, right now we had done effect size and forest plot, so I finish here. Okay, so I have shown you everything related to still the only correlation R. I was still on only correlation R. Okay, so this is how you can calculate. This is a free one. This is CMA is a paid one. Again, same data, forest plot, etc. And of course, this is how you. This is a data set. I'll be sending you all these sheets. I'll be sending you all these sheets in the WhatsApp. So this is how you input data. And in case you want to know the back end operations of how it was R was converted into Fishers, the formula is there in the PPT. And it's there in Borenstein's book also. So I took all the formulas in the PPT from Borenstein's book. So weight, and there's of course this table is this Excel sheet is thanks to Neeraj Kaushik sir. It has been taken up from there. So as and when he explained, I put up these red color. So you have the steps. So first you convert R to Fishers. There is a formula given. Then weight is n minus 3, which is 40 minus 3, and then there is a total. There is a weightage percentage calculated 5.72%. Then the weight is multiplied by the Fisher value that you had taken out. Okay, so that is YW. Okay, and the weight is squared, and then the weight divided by weight and Fishers divided by weight, and then 1 by weight. So this is how you find out variance. This is how you find out weighted mean. Okay, so these are all formulas if you want to go to the back end and find out. In case you have any doubts for any of these, you can always put up a message. So once you study these, okay, once you study this Excel sheet, you can always put up a doubt, if any, in the WhatsApp group. And CMA, I think, is pretty clear. It's pretty. I mean, again, I'm going to the data entry. Look, I just entered data. It converted it into Fishers E. I went to analyze, run analysis. It showed me a forest plot. I go to this blue button and it shows me the weight, the relative weight that has been taken. Okay, So relative weight is also there. It actually the weight assigned to each study, that is there. So this is a very simple software. And then you have, of course, last but not the least, you have Meta Essentials, okay, where there are two inputs I've shown. One is the input. Here it is, study name, correlation, number of subjects, same as we did in CMA, absolutely same as we did in CMA, okay. And there is a forest plot sheet. Again, it is absolutely same as we saw in CMA, absolutely same. Okay, so this is about all those who want to do a correlation. Okay, and if you see, if I've clicked on this, just a second, I have clicked on this consolidated effect size shown in a green color ball. Okay, so the moment you click it, it shows, it says combined effect size is 0.79. Okay, so it very clearly says that the combined effect size is 0.79. It shows over here in the green ball, and over here it also shows the output table also, it says 0.79. Okay, so this is the, what is this? This is again the consolidated effect size of all studies put together. Okay, so it's very simple to see. I've shown you on CMA and I've shown you on this. So the moment you just sort of click, it shows you a small box saying what is the consolidated effect size. He's found out it as 0.79. So even if you go to each study, suppose I go to my study number 1, it says correlation was 0.98. Okay, so here if I go, it says it was 0.05. Okay, it's actually showing the size was 8.32%, so that is the weightage. Okay, similarly over here, so it is showing that for each study also, like in CMA also it was showing, and for a consolidated it says it is combined effect size is 0.79. Now mind you, this is also only for one bivariate. So religion is to intention, this is only for that. Okay, so I am coming back to where I left. Now you know exactly the process. So it is being transferred to Z, back to correlation, precision points, variance, standard error, confidence level, upper, lower limit, all the formula for the same. Okay, they are there in the Excel sheet also. The moment you click anything on CMA, any value, if you click variance, it will give you variance formula. If you click Fisher, it will give you Fisher's formula. You might not even need this slide, but I thought it's better to consolidate it somewhere. Upper limit, lower limit, how it's been calculated, it's been shown. And finally, once you get the value, how to interpret it from Cohen's, whether it's a small effect, medium effect, or a large effect. Okay,